It's great to see everybody here. What a huge group. We at ANAB are also Qualtrax users, right? So I am in Qualtrax every day. So I am here this week to learn along with you. I was overwhelmed at how many newbies were here. This is fabulous. And Qualtrax puts on a great conference. You can already tell how much fun that you're going to have this week. It is going to be a blast to be here. But don't mistake that for not getting some real work done, because this is your opportunity. You're at tables with people today that you should switch up with tomorrow, right? So get out there, ask questions of the people that are with you, because you're all going through the same thing. You have access that's huge to Qualtrax, so don't let that pass you by. Don't just sit down in a corner and let the fun times pass you by, okay? So I'm going to be talking about the newest ISO superhero, the PDG, right? Everybody else had to have some initials and all up there. So PDG is a process-driven guy or gal. We're going to talk about that. Well, let's start with where you are in your quality world. So we know that superheroes, some are born that way, some are made that way, whether they're self-made or whether they are made by circumstances. In your world, as a quality person, you are a superhero. And so were you born that way? How many of you say you were born to be that quality superhero? And I have Leah somewhere who may have something for you. Put your hands back up again, you people there. So what are some superheroes that were just born that way? Oh, you guys, come on, it's early. You have to participate with me. Who? Superman was born that way. Wonder Woman, I feel like I'm double mic'd at this point. I'm like, how do these superhero women have all this stuff on them, right? Superwoman was born that way. Who is a self-made superhero? Batman? Iron Man, definitely an Iron Man, right? Who is a superhero that just was made that way, right? Like they weren't born that way, but circumstances around them forced them into that role. Spider-Man. How many of you are in that role as a quality superhero? Where you weren't born into it, but you just were made into that superhero. Nobody else? Yeah, raise your hands loud and proud, right? Yeah, you're all superheroes. You're all superheroes. Okay, so this is the agenda, my plot line, right? Like this is where we're going to go today, this morning, in our brief time together. Obviously, we're going to have some origin stories. We're going to talk about guidebooks, a dance-off, because I'm looking around the room and I'm like, there is a little bit of room. I think you guys could get up and do a dance-off. I think it could happen, right? Yeah, right? It could be awesome. We're going to talk about battle plans, organizational buy-in, right? Like SHIELD, we got to get them in the mix. Audits, assessments, and of course there's always credits at the end, so we have to stick around for those. Okay, let's talk about an origin story. Name a superhero movie that's an origin story. You guys are sleeping today. Come on, I know you had to get some stuff, right? Almost all of the first ones, right? Iron Man 1, Spider-Man, although there's like 50 Spider-Man, I think. So Leah can give out if you're willing to say that you got a movie. So the origin story for procedure, kind of boring from Merriam-Webster, right? Particular way of accomplishing something. Interestingly enough, the synonym is process. So we're going to be talking about processes and procedures today. And there is a difference, right? In the ISO world, there is a difference. How many of you follow an ISO standard? Most of you, right? Most of you in the quality world are going to be following an ISO standard. So in the ISO 17000, this is the new DIS that's out right now. It's in draft form. That is a specified way to carry out an activity or process. That's what a procedure is. For us, it's that comfort area, right? It's something that's written. It's something that we can control. And as quality people, we like those, right? We like to have procedures in place. Process, slightly different, but yet along the same veins. If you talk to a layperson, they might say that it's kind of the same sort of thing, right? Series of actions or operations conducing to an end. ISO 9000, which is the management standard. It says it's a set of interrelated or interactive activities that use inputs to deliver an intended result. Big picture in the ISO world doesn't necessarily have to be written down. A process is something that you do to get to an end, right? It's something that we do. Every one of you does a process. How many of you have a process in the morning for when you get out of bed? You do something first, right? When you cook a meal, maybe you start, I wash my hands first, I go do this, right? We all learn with processes, right? We kind of get into those habits. Sometimes they're there and they can be a big help for us because we don't have to think on something because we can just follow the process and we get the desired result at the end. And if we don't get the desired result, we can change it up a little bit, right? So varying levels of controls over processes, which is what's so fabulous about marrying up the Qualtrax and the new ISO world together and how you can get there. So many of you said that you're following an ISO standard. So you can think of that ISO standard as either being a rule book. If you're accredited, it's a rule, right? You have to follow that. If you're not accredited, it's just a guidebook. You can always add in extra ISO standards. There are thousands of ISO standards out there that give good guidance and good recommendations on how you can meet different things. So you're going to get some of those talks this week so that you can try to increase your toolbox there. So there has been a definite shift in process versus procedure and how things are seen. So you can see we have some rough numbers up here. I'm not gonna do a 99% confidence level on this. But ISO 9001 procedures use 0 times, processes use 28 times. So in your management systems, it's all process, right? That 9001 was one of the first documents. The Casco started to change over with those languages. The most recent one, 17025. So how many of you are following 17025? There's a few of you. That's the laboratory one. It's for calibration and testing. So that document, the 2005 version, procedure was used 79 times. You can see in 2017 it dropped to 32 times. Definitely dropped. Process used 11 times in 2005, 19 times in 2017. So not a one-for-one switch, right? It wasn't a one-for-one. Everything is getting a little bit easier for people to have that flexibility that they need, and that's where you're going to find for the processes. Okay, dance off. Who's willing to challenge somebody to a dance-off? You're all like, no, she's totally crazy. Name, and Leah has at least one bracelet for you. Name a superhero movie with a dance-off. You could do it. Which one?
The first one.
Nice. Come up here, Leah. Yay. Double mics. It's going to be crazy. Was that awesome or what? I know some of you are like, red box, $1.25. Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Okay, so talking about, for us, procedures and processes, right? Who has the better dance skills? Procedures, obviously, the favorite, right? It's like the Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, right? They've always been around. We have confidence in them. We know the dance skills that they have. The process, kind of the new guy on the block, but could be still pretty exciting, right? You wouldn't want to say that you don't want to see either one of them, right? Like there's no reason in a dance-off that somebody actually never gets seen again. You like to see people dance, you like to see different styles. That's where ISO gives you that flexibility, where you can go either way. You can do the old-fashioned way, you can do whatever works. You can try a process, you can try something in the middle. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes too. So, strengths and weaknesses. All of these procedures and processes are going to support your conforming work. It can be something that's tangible, something that's flexible. These strengths and weaknesses are both, right? We know in the superhero movies that you can have something that's a strength in one situation and definitely becomes a weakness in another situation, that same characteristic. It's that same thing in your process, right? Which is why you guys are superheroes, and that you're watching everything that's going on. You're getting the inputs coming in from your agencies, your laboratories, your facilities, your businesses, and you are aware of where you can try and switch out between a process and a procedure. So again, the process piece, the biggest superpower that they have is flexibility. And flexibility can be a great thing, but I know some of us, quality, I'll just speak for myself, right? So some of us that do quality work, quality managers, you get that feeling like, oh, they're gonna go off the rails, it's gonna be crazy, people are just gonna be, running with scissors, which I saw the little tag out there at the desk. How fabulous, right? Running with scissors. So, processes. We don't work in silos if we're doing a good job, right? In your companies, in your laboratories, wherever you're working, you have a lot of people in different areas, right? You have maybe sales and marketing, you have, I'm from forensics, right? So I could have toxicology or drugs or firearms. You have all these administrative facilities. You have all these people and parts and pieces. And procedures tend to make you siloed, right? Because a lot of times the procedure's written for your little group, one little group. Whereas if you have something that's a process, you can think more globally and you can make sure that everybody gets included and everybody's gonna have their voice heard in this. Processes can be nimble. You can change them really quickly. So it's easier to change a process than it is to change a procedure that's been controlled and needs 25 different signatures and approvals up the chain, right? Even though Qualtrax gives us great tools, it still relies on people to do the approval, doesn't it? And so this time of year on vacation, or you're here, right? What do you have in place behind the scenes? So the tools are only as good as what you have as your processes with your people and all. For processes, if you don't have it written down as a procedure, you can make changes if the regulations in your field change. If you lose a supplier and you only have one supplier listed as an approved supplier, an external service, you can make changes. You can be a lot quicker. Your marketing people see something where you're like, okay, this is something we want to jump on really fast. You can move quicker. You can get things done because you're not having to necessarily go through a procedure piece where you're controlling everything and going through that process. It evolves. So if your people along the lines come to you and say, I see a better way to do this, you can help that evolve. It doesn't have to always evolve at the same time either, which is, again, hugely flexible, right? So we all know when you open up a document, it's controlled, and you're like, okay, I just need to change this one thing. But you know what happens in the real world, right? Everybody else is like, oh, it's free for all. I can change this section and this section and this section, and it just kind of gets crazy, right? So with a process, it is allowed to organically evolve, and so that you can meet the needs. It can adapt. Right? Your staff can adapt, the processes can adapt, everything can move because you don't necessarily have it written down. Processes definitely reward self-starters, those that are thinking outside of the box. So that can be a weakness and it can be a benefit, an opportunity, right? Opportunities and risks. And I know that you're going to have a great talk tomorrow on risk. So why can that be an opportunity or risk if it rewards self-starters and thinking outside of the box? What's the downside to that? You have to be louder. So thinking outside of the box, they may not have that improvement, they may not have that skill set. Maybe not all of your employees have that skill set. Yeah, so you have to think of it as a quality professional where it's appropriate to do things like processes and how to get people on board with your processes and where you're going to go with things. All of this is going to have risks and opportunities with the way that we approach it. But again, your goal in the end is to improve quality, right? So if that's your why, if that's what you're doing is improving quality, then you want to have as many tools in your toolbox that you can, and this is just one of those tools. So this is where the marriage of Qualtrax and the ISO world is so phenomenal. The hybrid superpower is automated processes. This is your workflows. We use workflows at ANAB every day. We rely on them for a lot of work. I have written down a few. Thankfully, Rhonda is way better at it. So it's very sad that she's not here to share because she loves designing workflows. She does a great job at it. The first Qualtrax conference she and I came to, we sat down separated, right? We were like divide and conquer. We sat down with people from all sorts of different agencies at a conference just like this a few years ago and said, okay, who's doing what with your workflows? And can I get your card so that I can copy your workflow and do things like that? This is your opportunity to make this work, right? You can do amazing things, but why reinvent the wheel, right? Start to seek out from others how they're building their workflows and putting them together. So what does an automated process look like? Well, we all understand automated processes. Is there anyone in here who has never ordered on Amazon? Right? Not a single hand, right? Everybody's ordered on Amazon. That's an automated process, whether you believe it or not, right? You have some flexibility in your searches, which Amazon drives me crazy with their searches, right? So you can, put in a piece of a phrase. You can just, do recommendations down the side. There's, related items at the bottom, right? Like you have a million ways that you can kind of get into the Amazon world and find things. But when it comes time to purchase, can you just do whatever you want? Would it be customer friendly for them to give you the SOP on how to order my magic cape over here? No, right? You're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. Your customer don't want to do that. Your staff doesn't want to have to do that, right? Who still has that kind of ordering process for supplies? I just need 2 pens. Just 2 pens. Don't make me fill out a form for 2 pens. So this is the thing for you guys, right? Is you can put these processes in place so that some of it is automated where they can't go from A to D without, hitting the in-betweens, that they have to put this in place. So when you go to Amazon that you're gonna have to put in a credit card. It won't let you put in letters, right? So it already has those bands, those tolerances on the side where it helps you to not mess up. You can do that, right? A lot of us use forms. How many of you use forms in your work? Yeah, right? A form is kind of an automated way to do things, right? It's not an SOP. You have to fill in, and if I have blank spots, then I know there's something not quite right. But I might be able to fill in those spots at different times, right? Because Susie may start from the top down, but Josh, he starts in the middle. He's a rebel. I don't know why, right? So you have things like that, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it doesn't matter, right? Just like Amazon. I don't care how you find what you want, but you can find it. And then when it comes time to actually purchasing, then it's the real deal, right? I can't let you go off the rails. I need to have that credit card. I need to know the expiration, right? There are things that I need to have in place. When you put in an automated process, like a workflow, you can control what you're getting, and you can control the path that they're taking in order to get to the end line. So how do you set one up? This is the easiest part of my talk, right? You're sitting here, right? You guys, again, have that opportunity this week. The Qualtrax folks are fabulous. They're so knowledgeable. You're going to reach out to them and talk to them about it. When should you use an automated process? That's the most interesting thing, right? Like, how am I going to tackle this? And do I really need to tackle this? Why would I switch things to processes and all? Right, so I know that's what you're thinking. You need a battle plan, right? No superhero just flies off the cuff. Actually, they do, don't they? But do they always have good results when they do that? It's better to have a battle plan, right? And typically with quality people, we're all about the battle plans. Okay, so innovate or status quo. That's the choice a lot of times that we have, right? Do we want to come up with something new, or do we want to do a status quo? Okay, so my next trivia question. Who in here is my Avenger fans? Some. Tony Stark, innovator or status quo? Innovator. So Leah may be wandering around and give you a bracelet if you say. Okay, so name me a superhero that follows the status quo.
Captain America.
It is, right? Language. Just saying, language. For those of you who haven't watched that movie, you have to watch that movie. Okay, so different skill sets, but you need them all, right? In the end, the Avengers is a group, and you don't work by yourself in a one-person lab, is my bet, right? You need a group. You need people around you that have the different skill sets, that have the different approaches. So figure out who your people are and who you want on your team that you're going to work with. Identify your areas of interest in your battle plan, okay? So some of your approaches could be something that you're always updating. If you have a procedure and you look through the document control list, and it is like 10 pages long of how often, and it's changed every week, maybe this is a good thing to do for a process, right? Give it a try. Look at that and think, okay, can I change this into a process where I don't have an SOP? It's allowed to be more flexible. Where can it be more flexible? The only way you can do this is to pull the people in that are actually doing the process, right? Maybe it's something that the process or the procedure never gets updated, right? It's been there for 20 years and nothing's ever changed. That may be a good one too, where you're like, you know what, you can take the training wheels off, okay? It's okay to take off the baby monitor like Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man, if everybody saw it in Homecoming and they had the baby monitor on them, right? So you can take those off and try something like that. But the goal is pick something and do something, okay? Be strategic about what your plans are. So saving the world is messy. We all know this, right? We all live in this world. We know that it's messy. Processes and even to a certain extent procedures are in your whole life, your whole area, right? I admit that I have a procedure on index cards for laundry for my teenagers so that I don't end up with pink underwear, right? Which might be okay for me, but not my husband. So sometimes, you want to do something like that. But again, a lot of times you just do the process. So here, you're going to have to get buy-in. You're going to have people on this trip with you, team members, and those that are just to the side, right? Because a superhero has to have the adoring crowd, right? I mean, it doesn't work if you're in a forest and there's nobody around to see that you saved the world, right? Somebody needs to know other people are impacted and affected. So you have to pull them in. What you notice about this is that it's the same for the pressure from the top and the pressure from the front line. It really is the same. The difference is the perspective. And Jeff earlier, his talk was spot on with everything, but spot on this, right? Where you have to put yourself in their shoes and think about how this is going to impact them and what kind of changes they're going to have, whether it's a procedure or whether it's a process. But definitely if you're like, okay, I'm going to, I've had this procedure in place for 25 years, it's never changed. We're going to take the procedure away and let's go ahead and go over here and start a process. And we won't have it necessarily written down. Some of it may be in Qualtrax, maybe all of it's in Qualtrax at the beginning. You get to pick how that works. Pull in the people. So from the top, they're going to want to know, how do I know if it's working? So in quality, we use procedures and written records and documents as our safety blanket, don't we? They're comfortable. We know that if an assessor comes in and asks for it, that I have something. Whether it's great, at the end of the day, sometimes I don't care. I needed something. I needed something to be able to hand over. So you really want to stop and think about, again, why you're doing things. You're doing it for the quality, right? Don't lose that why. The why is for the quality of whatever the result, service, product that you're doing, right? You want to make sure that you put yourself in their thought of what data or process or piece are they already seeing. And then figure out how to meet that or change it so that they get what they need for their stakeholders, their bosses, their people, right? So from the top, what is it that's important to them? They're going to be interested in customer feedback, stakeholder feedback, right? They're going to be interested in the bottom line. Are we earning money? Are we putting out the cases? Are we fixing whatever problem that our big goal is to do? So get yourself in their mindset and figure out what it is that they're looking for, and then figure out how to give it to them without having an SOP in place. It's a great exercise. It can be very freeing and frustrating all at the same time, right? Because not everybody has the same goals. So get buy-in from them. Give them a path forward on how they can meet their goals, how they can report this, right? If you're used to having an SOP that has a checkbox for everything that they're doing, and the checkboxes go away, what are you going to give them? Pressure from the front line, these are the folks that can make or break you. They can take away your Avenger status, just telling you right now. So you want the frontline folks to be involved. You want them to have that buy-in so that they understand why you're doing something and the bigger why of the company, right? And don't think just because you are necessarily a quality person and may not be in the chain of, this group or that group, that you don't have an impact on them, because you have a huge impact on all that are around you. And so you want to think about their thought processes and think about keeping all of these people involved. You need a realistic plan. So don't promise them that the world will be fixed, in 2 days, because it doesn't really happen that way, right? It takes a long time. Don't just go in and start changing things left and right on them, because a lot of people that are not, they like things as a habit, right? They like to do things the same way, and they don't want to get out of that rut sometimes that we're in. Sometimes the ruts can be helpful. Sometimes it just slows us down. So explain the tracking mechanisms to them, right? We used to do it this way. This is why we did it this way. We're going to switch now, and we're going to switch things over to a process. And you're going to start using Qualtrax for this. You're going to use this form for that piece, and how to put it all together. Make sure that people understand what your goal is and how to get through the goal. So again, just like the talk this morning, how do I get to the end stage for my job, right? How do I get there at the end so that I have a good product, a good service, good result, whatever it is that I'm happening to do. So again, that buy-in is just huge. Okay, what to do when the badges show up? They can be good guys and bad guys all at the same time. One table had the evil assessor as their group up here. I was dying laughing. That is hysterical. I've been on both sides of the aisle for that one. I have been a technical assessor, a lead assessor, and then obviously in a laboratory, I've been the one that's being assessed, and been, one of the people that make sure that people in my section, right, supervise and manage, that they're following the processes and all. It's a very different hat to be putting on, right, or a superhero cape. It's a very different hat to put on whichever role that you're in. You will hugely benefit yourself and your organization if you try to think about what hat you have on and put different hats on deliberately. So today I'm going to think that I am an evil assessor. How am I going to go through this laboratory and go through your processes that way? Go through and talk to your people that way to figure out, okay, where do I have these gaps? Where can I bolster things, change things? What's not working? What is working? That's just as important. What is working? Where can you be the cheerleader and rah people on, right? So as the quality person, you need to lay breadcrumbs. That's my advice, my personal Melissa advice, is to lay the breadcrumb trail for your assessors and for the people that are internal auditors, right? Because if you're following an ISO standard, I lay you odds you're doing internal auditing. So it's just as important to make sure that the internal audit process is robust as it is for that external process, right? Because you would rather find it yourself than you would have somebody else find it from the outside. So lay the breadcrumbs. What do your assessors and auditors want to know? Are you doing the right job, right? We all know that there are evil assessors out there that are just like, they are the check boxes, right? They come in with a briefcase, checklist, can they go down? That's not what we would hope is the norm. That's not where we would hope any of us would be, right? That our goal is to ensure conformance for the quality purposes of things. So who are the assessors going to have to talk to? You know what kind of rules you have in place, what kind of guidelines you have in place. You know how the process should work, you know how the procedures should work. So you think, who is going to answer the question for the auditor or the assessor? Who knows the answer? So if you've spent all your time on 2 or 3 people in your group and you haven't included other people in understanding the way the process works, to understand the workflow, to understand where the data resides, who knows the answer, then you will get to that day where somebody walks in, whether it's an internal auditor or assessor, and you have to stop and think, oh my gosh, they're going to go talk to Susie Q. And Susie Q could be a double agent, right? We have those in the superhero movies. So you want to pick everybody in your group, basically, and everybody that you work with, whether they're in your chain or not, to be part of the process of putting these things in place so that you have those breadcrumbs there. You know that the people know the answers and or know to say, I don't know the answer, let's go talk to who's my go-to person for this, who's my go-to person for that. So you want to work through all of that. And obviously, you want to breathe, focus, and show grace for human shortcomings, right? That's what our superheroes do. So we want to do that as well. When the internal audits happen, when the assessors come in, when other regulatory people come in. In forensics, the big thing is court testimony, right? So every time a forensic person goes out and testifies, it's like the badges are there. They're judging you on what was done, how was it done, and did you follow the rules? And I'm sure that in your agencies, if you're not forensics, it's the same. There's somebody else out there, even more than internal assessors and all. There's a reason why you're doing your job. For those of you that are in healthcare, it's a huge, huge burden and blessing, right? There is a reason why you're doing what you're doing. So think about that. And yes, you really do have to keep saving the world over and over again. So I know in the Marvel and DC world, it just means more box office revenue, right? I mean, so they really do have to save it over again. But for the rest of us, we're just human and we're gonna mess up. Things change, right? So things are gonna change. Okay, so for credits, obviously I need to thank ANAB that I'm here. Qualtrax, Deanna's been fabulous to work with as usual. And then the workflows, right? That's our sidekicks. So our sidekicks are here. You have, again, all these people in these great fun shirts that you can go and talk to about workflows. Talk to your table mates as well, right? Get those business cards so that you have other people that you can talk to. And of course, there are quality superheroes everywhere. So those are my credits, but this is like a Marvel movie, right? Who leaves before the end of the credits? So there's always room for new superheroes, new superpowers. So pick something that you think will work as an automated process, and I want you to write it down right now. I know you all have a piece of paper in front of you. Some of you may have come with a workflow that you wanted to do or an automated process that you want to put in place. Pick something different if so. I want to challenge you. I want everybody, and I don't see you writing anything down. Come on. Pick up a pen. I want you to write something down right now and find either a Qualtrax person today or a table mate today where you can work something out. Start thinking about what you're going to do. Because it's all well and good to sit through these talks. You're going to hear fabulous talks this week. I love the ones where users come in and talk about how they're using their product. Those are great. You should go to those. But it's only as good as what you're willing to do. So unless you're willing to get up and make some action and have your own battle plan, then you're just going to have sat here like sitting through the movies for a while. So unless you go on and put on your own cape, nothing's going to happen. And that is it.